Let's start from the end. Picture an oak-paneled conference room, a row of stiff-backed chairs, and faces I once would have crossed a county line to kiss goodnight. My son straightened his tie like he was negotiating a merger. My daughter dabbed at non-existent tears so delicately you'd think her mascara cost more than my first car. The 4 grandkids scrolled, smirked, or yawned. God love them, each one so sure the world had sent them an engraved invitation. And me? I was right there, very much alive, breathing quietly behind a length of smoked glass with my lawyer and a plate of lemon cookies. Everyone believed they were attending my will hearing. In a way, they were. I had faked my death. Don't clutch your pearls yet. It was tidy and legal enough. And I'd come armed with 6 envelopes, each one containing a task. Funny on the surface, back-breaking underneath. A scavenger hunt for souls. They wanted my money. I wanted my family back. If you're ready for this journey, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this a like so you don't miss the updates. And let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. It's always lovely to see where everyone is. My name is Eleanor May Whitaker. Ellie, if you grew up with me, Mrs. Whitaker if you talked to me at the library, and Mom or Gran if you needed $50 for a school trip again. I'm 67, a widow of 10 years, and I've lived in the same butter yellow house in Coral Springs since we still called the mall new. I was a kindergarten teacher, then a school librarian, then a church bake sale tyrant with a lemon square recipe folks still ask for at funerals. I've loved my family so hard I swear you can see the fingerprints if you look closely. And for most of my life, I thought love meant smoothing the sheets so they never felt the crease. That delusion died in a hospital room last winter. Not me. The rumor of my demise came later, but the delusion. I'd had what the doctor called a warning flicker, the mildest of strokes that left me woozy and furious at my own right hand for forgetting how to hold a pen. By day 2, I could write again, which meant I could also hear clearly. And what I heard in that room replaced 40 years of lullabies with the sound of a safe cracking. Evan, my son, leaning over my chart like he owned the place, whispering, "We should get ahead of probate. The house will sit if we let it." Lydia, my daughter, murmuring, "She'll want something tasteful. No lilies. And if we turn the living room into staging, an open house could happen same weekend as the service." One grandchild, Marcus, murmured, "If the house clears 700, I can finally get out of options and into real estate." Another, Sloan, whispered, "I should be the one to do her slideshow. The aesthetic has to be consistent." I lay there listening to my children and my children's children plan my memorial like a pop-up shop and split my home into neat arithmetic. To be fair, fear makes people strange, but it wasn't fear that made them talk return on investment while my heart still wore stickers from the EKG. It was habit, and I'm the one who raised the habit. When I came home, I sat in my quiet kitchen with the needlepoint rooster, my Hanks Navy portrait watching me from the wall, and a legal pad. I made 2 columns. On the left, I wrote every way I'd taught them to treat me. Say yes, fix it, don't complain, be grateful for crumbs of attention, laugh off the insult, keep the peace, write the check. On the right, I wrote what I wanted to teach before I actually left this earth. Say no, require honesty, demand effort, reward compassion, tie money to meaning, make them sweat, make them laugh, make them learn. I didn't want revenge in the cinematic sense, no sugar in gas tanks, no burning bridges, though I was tempted to sprinkle glitter into Evan's cufflink drawer for sport. What I wanted was justice laced with humor, like a pie to the face followed by a hug. I wanted each of them to meet the very edge of their worst vice, bump into it nose first, and think, well, I'll be darned. That smells like me. Enter attorney Deshaun Pierce. Tall, calm, the kind of man who says, now hold on, and you find yourself holding on. He'd drawn up Hank's will and mine, and he loved lemon squares almost as much as he loved procedure. I told him what I wanted, a conditional legacy trust with tasks. I'd prefer to call them assignments, like I was handing out homework to 6 very large kindergartners. But task sounds adult in a legal document. He stared at me over his glasses and said, "Mrs. Whitaker, what you're describing is unusual." I said, "So am I, and they're mine to be unusual with." We spent a month crafting it. Not petty tests. No wear a silly hat in public. These had to be funny on the face, tricky underneath. I wrote them like a love letter from the teacher I had been to the adults I still hoped my family could be. Then came the theatrical flourish. How to get them to take any of it seriously. People attend a will reading, I mused. They don't attend a mom's assignment meeting. Deshawn smiled slowly. There are ways to stage a private family proceeding that feel formal without saying what they aren't. We set a date, we sent letters. We never said funeral. We never said fake. We sent notice of testamentary conference. The town, bless it, supplied the rumors. Did Ellie die? I didn't correct anyone. I simply went very, very quiet. My friends, Mabel from the library, Sal from my church choir, Betty, who makes a banana pudding that could stop a war, knew. They signed confidentiality agreements that made them giggle. Goodness, Ellie, this is more exciting than our Nancy Drew Club. And so, the oak-paneled room, my family lined up like ducks, except meaner and holding phones. I had 6 envelopes, each one with a name and a color. The colors weren't random. I'm a librarian. We're always shelving more than books. Evan's was safety orange. Lydia's was lipstick red. Marcus's was slick silver. Sloane's was millennial pink. 2 on the nose? Maybe. Theo's was neon green, that boy and his gaming headset. Noah's was sky blue, because he's 12, and I still have hope. Deshawn cleared his throat, and the room fell into an expensive silence. "Thank you all for attending," he said. "Before we proceed, I need to clarify 2 things. First, nothing that happens today is a distribution. This is an instruction session. Second, Mrs. Whitaker has pre-recorded statements which will be played for each of you." Lydia sniffed. "Pre-recorded," she repeated, like she was testing the texture of the word. We dimmed the lights. On the screen, I appeared in my cheerful blue cardigan, pearls Hank gave me for our 20th, lipstick that took 3 tries. I waved. "Hello, my loves. If you're watching this, it means 2 things. 1, I have your attention, and 2, my pound cake recipe is under the KitchenAid, like always." Sloane whispered, "The lighting is okay." I smiled on screen. Before anyone faints, look at Deshawn. If he lifts his left eyebrow, it means I've truly passed, and you may cry. If he lifts his right, it means you may not. Look at his face. Good? Good. Deshawn, off-screen in real life, scrupulously did nothing with either eyebrow. And in my hidden observation alcove, I sipped water and prayed nobody noticed the cookie crumbs. "Let's begin with the envelopes," my video self said. "Inside, you'll find a task tailored to you. Completing it earns you not only a share of money, but something you can't list on Zillow or show off on Instagram. Listen carefully." He handed the first envelope to Evan, safety orange. He tore it open like it might explode and read, "Transform the Maple Street duplex into safe, affordable housing for 2 families with working smoke alarms, lead-free paint, and a backyard that passes inspection. Live there for 1 month, including the first Friday chili night in Unit A. Budget cap $30,000, except no rent during the renovation period. Penalty for outsourcing all labor, disqualification. Bonus, for every hour you swing a hammer, $100 goes to the firefighters fund. Evan's mouth did a remarkable thing. It disappeared. He said, "Mom," to the screen, even though it was a recording. "I know, honey, you run numbers. I want you to meet people. Tools, too. Your daddy worked those hands to the bone to keep us fed after he left the Navy. A floor you sand yourself will sound different when the kids upstairs run across it." He looked at Deshawn. "Is she serious? 30,000 won't cover—" Deshawn folded his hands. "Mrs. Whitaker's trust has some matching funds if you secure community grants." "Grants?" Evan said, like it tasted bitter. "Funny on the surface, back-breaking underneath," I murmured from my side of the glass, and Sal, my choir buddy beside me, snorted into her hand. Next up, Lydia, lipstick red. She pulled the card out like it expected it to bite. "Host a 7-day pay-what-you-can event at La Belle, your boutique. No mirrors on the sales floor. Each customer leaves with a card telling them what you see in them that isn't about clothes. Donate all proceeds to the women's shelter. Spend 1 full day behind the register without makeup, hair extensions, or filters. Live stream optional, but if you live stream, no retouching." "Mother," she breathed, because sometimes that word means love, and sometimes it means lawsuit. "No mirrors?"
"You've always been beautiful," my video self said. "I'd like you to practice seeing something else in women. Strength, humor, resilience, before they see themselves. The shelter needs bras and basics. You have a room full of dresses for people who skip meals to buy them. Help me connect those dots." Lydia folded the card carefully. Her nails were the color of pomegranates and very sharp. For a second, her eyes looked wet. Then she blinked it back. "Marcus, my oldest grandson, slick silver envelope. His hair is always 2 weeks ahead of style, and his conscience 2 steps behind. Build a reliable Wi-Fi network and computer corner in the public library's reading room," he read. "Teach a twice-weekly class to seniors titled Scams, Scandals, and How Not to Get Got. Compensation capped at $1 per hour. For each of your students who avoids a scam because of your instruction, $500 goes into your share. If you shill crypto to anyone's grandmother, I will haunt you." Marcus laughed, full and genuine. "Okay, Gran, that's funny. It's hilarious until you reset 12 passwords for someone twice your age and realize patience is heavier than gold," I said softly to the glass, remembering how many patrons cried in the stacks because a stranger emptied their checking account by asking, "Are you at your computer?" Sloane, millennial pink. She's my influencer granddaughter. All angles and gloss and the self-consciousness of a gazelle who hasn't learned she's prey yet. She unfolded the card. "Create a 14-episode series called Unfiltered Kindness featuring small business owners in our town. No filters, no sponsors. Minimum 5 minutes per episode. You must appear on camera barefaced at least half the time, and you will disclose that in every caption. Each episode must include one kindness performed for the subject that they didn't ask for. If your audience drops, I don't care. If your subjects cry from relief, we celebrate." Sloane's hand flew to her cheek like she could feel the pixels. "Barefaced? Gran, I have brand deals." "Deals built on pretending," my video self said gently. "Let's see what you can do built on truth." Theo, neon green. 16, a sweet boy whose work ethic evaporates in the blue glow of his multiple screens. Design, build, and install 50 birdhouses for the city park. Recruit at least 6 younger kids to help. Teach them how to use a tape measure and not to hammer their thumbs. For every bird that actually nests, I will add $50 to your share. For every evening you spend watching a sunset instead of a screen, I will add 10 more. You must keep a log. Screens capped at 1 hour a day during the build." Theo's mouth twitched. 50? Birds need homes too, my video self beamed. And your hands need splinters to remember they exist. Finally, Noah, sky blue. 16, a sweet boy whose work ethic evaporates in the blue glow of his multiple screens. Read the Honesty Marathon. 21 days. Every lie costs you $5 taken from your share and donated to the Literacy Fund. Keep a journal of truths, 3 per day, that feel scary to say. At the end, host a kids' talent show at the community center and introduce each performer with a compliment about something real. Not their shoes, not their hair. Noah looked up, caught, finally, the ghost of a smile on Deshawn's face. Do white lies count? Deshawn raised his left eyebrow. A room full of Whitakers inhaled. Then he raised his right. Both, he said. And one more thing, my video self added. All tasks have checkpoints. You will report weekly to my team, Deshawn, Mabel, Sal, and Betty, who will verify. If you cheat, we will know. If you try to buy your way out, we will decline your generous donation and record it for posterity on the corkboard at the library. And if you complete your task, your share of the trust is released, along with a separate letter I've written just for you. The lights went up. The room was suddenly too bright. Folks shift in chairs when the script changes. You can hear it like weather moving in. Evan's jaw set so hard I worried about the dental work. Lydia pressed her lips together like she was sewing them. The grandkids. Their faces softened, just a hair, which is all we need sometimes to slip in a new idea. Questions? Deshawn asked. Is she, Lydia started, meaning me, alive? She is present, Deshawn said, which was exactly the sort of answer a good attorney gives when he's keeping his promise. And she is determined. And if we decline, Evan asked, straightening his tie until it threatened strangulation, then your shares revert to the Community Foundation, named after your father. That landed. Hank's name always does. He was the gravity in our tiny universe.
They filed out with their colored assignments tucked like dangerous flags under their arms. I stayed behind the glass and let my shoulders drop all at once, like I was stepping off a curb I hadn't seen. Sal squeezed my hand. You sure, hun? No, I said, and laughed because it was true, but I'm ready. We gave them a week to stew. People must stew before they boil, and then we watched. Evan attacked the Maple Street duplex like a man who'd been handed a baby he didn't quite know how to hold. He arrived with a clipboard, a Bluetooth headset, and a contractor named Dale, whose biceps had their own zip code. Within 10 minutes of Dale quoting him a number that rhymed with nope, Evan understood the word outsourcing was poison in my little game. You're seriously telling me to grab a hammer? He asked Deshawn on the phone. I'm telling you her rules are extraordinarily clear, Deshawn said. Volunteers are permitted, contractors on salary are not. Your choice. Evan chose volunteers. He posted in the neighborhood group. The neighborhood responded like neighborhoods do, curious and then generous. 2 retired firefighters showed up with tool belts older than most marriages. A teacher arrived with a box of masks and a lecture about lead paint that would curl your hair. A couple from the church brought a crock pot of chili so thick the spoon could stand upright. And on that first Friday night, through sheer stubbornness and a truly comedic amount of sanding, Evan sat on a borrowed milk crate in Unit A, sweating through his dress shirt, and served bowls of chili to strangers who would one day call him landlord without a sneer. We sent Mabel with a clipboard to check for smoke alarms and the beginnings of dignity. She saw me coming and rolled his eyes, but then he carried my clipboard up the stairs, which I must admit is an untapped kink. I made notes. I'm always making notes. Lydia, meanwhile, stood in the middle of La Belle in yoga pants and a face as bare as a newborn. She had rolled a full-length mirror into the stockroom, covered it with a blanket, and hung a sign on the door that read, "The mirror is on break. So are our insecurities." On day 1 of Pay What You Can, 3 women from the shelter came in, picked up softly used blouses with hands that shook, and offered an envelope of crumpled 1s and 5s.
Lydia said, "Perfect," like a benediction, and put the envelope under the register. She started to hand them her usual marketing card, "Tag us if you love your look," but caught herself and instead scribbled on index cards. Your laugh made me want to stand closer. You're the kind of person who remembers birthdays, aren't you? That's a gift. Your shoulders look like you could carry someone else's hard day and make it lighter. She cried in the stockroom at lunch and came out with a napkin pressed under each eye like little sails. Sloane, who had wandered in to document, lifted her phone. Lydia held up a hand. "No," she said softly, "not this." Marcus took to the library like a fox in a henhouse and then discovered hens have more teeth than he assumed. He swaggered in with a mesh bag full of cables, a Wi-Fi extender that looked like a spaceship, and a t-shirt that said, "Trust me, I'm a tech guy," which made Mabel chortle, and me write "stage costume" in the margin of my notebook. He promised the seniors a scam prevention class so lively they'd forget to nap. Then the light found him. Mrs. Gianetti, 82, who brought a Yahoo email older than 2 of my grandchildren and the kind of patience that only comes from raising 4 sons through the 70s. She listened to Marcus explain two-factor authentication and then said, sweet as iced tea, "Honey, show me where to click like you're my grandmother and you truly love me." That's when I saw something change behind my grandson's eyes. He adapted. He slowed down. He said, "We're going to make your password your grandson's favorite soup, and nobody will guess it." And she said, "They will if they know he's a simple boy." And the whole reading room laughed. That day, I'm told, he stayed an hour late. That night, Mabel called me and said, "He is not altogether hopeless." Sloane filmed her first unfiltered kindness episode at Freddie's barbershop, which has photos of boys' first haircuts lined up like a timeline. She asked me permission to include a clip of me at the library that I loved, and I told her, "Not yet. Make something without borrowing my sweetness," I said. She rolled her eyes, then caught herself, then said, "Fair." She set her phone on a stack of old barber capes, framed her own face beside Freddie's in the shot, and whispered to herself, "No filter." The second she hit record, her voice went up an octave, that influencer chirp that I can hear through walls. She stopped. "No," she said out loud, and started again in her real voice, the one she uses when she calls me late and says, "Gran, yup?" She asked Freddie about his first day cutting hair, the boys who came in with mullets their mothers loved, and paid for 3 cuts for men who came in looking like they lost a bet and left looking like themselves. Theo, armed with a PDF I printed titled "Birdhouses for Beginners," asked his best friend Justo to help and bribed his little cousins with popsicles. The first day in my garage, they measured twice and still cut wrong because nobody checked if the tape measure started at 0. They hammered their thumbs. They laughed like it was a party. Theo instinctively reached for his phone every 10 minutes to watch a streamer build a virtual house with the push of a button, then put the phone down because Mabel had eyes like a hawk and a whistle. By evening, there was 1 lopsided birdhouse that looked like a cartoon dog and 3 kids who knew the difference between a Phillips and a flathead. Noah, bless his bright heart, blew $35 in the honesty jar by dinner on day 1. "I told Aunt Ludia I loved her dress when actually it looked like a tomato," he confessed, solemn as a saint. "I told Mom I flossed. I did not floss. And I told Theo I didn't take his sour gummies when actually I took his sour gummies. I am very sorry," he wrote, big messy boy handwriting like my kitchen counter on cookie day. He hosted his first dinner introduction as an experiment. "This is my mom. She makes chicken that doesn't scare me. This is my brother. He is smelly but nice." We added a clause. Compliments must not include the word smelly. He grinned and tried again. "This is my brother. He is good at Mario Kart and at finding things when I lose them." That was a true thing, and we all felt it. And just when he thought he had me backed into a corner, he forgot who he was dealing with. Stick with me because you'll want to see how this plays out. Because here's the part that still makes me smile into my coffee. None of them could buy their way out, and they kept trying. Evan tried to gift brand new appliances to the duplex, leveraging a supplier he schmoozed at golf, and Deshaun gently reminded him the point wasn't to flash cash, it was to get his hands dirty and his ears open. Lydia tried to schedule her no-makeup day on a Monday morning when the shop is generally tumbleweeds and moths. We moved it to Saturday and stuck a handwritten sign on the door saying, "Come see your favorite shop girl in her original packaging." She grimaced, then laughed, which is a tiny revolution. Marcus brought in a buddy to help teach scams. The buddy opened with, "Never click a link unless it's from a verified source like me," and Mabel escorted him out by asking gently, "Are you paid by the hour or the scam?" Sloane added the softest possible blur filter to her first edit, the kind that only evens skin tone, and my team caught it because Betty has an eye for deceit after 50 years of church raffles. "Start over," Betty told her, and Sloane did, tears welling for reasons that had very little to do with pores. Meanwhile, from my quiet corner of the world, I tested what it felt like to let go. I watered the tomatoes. I wrote a letter to myself about the difference between being loved and being used, and I read it out loud until I didn't cry. I baked, not because anyone needed pie, but because a woman must measure and stir to remind herself that instinct and recipe both have their place. I met with Deshawn and the team every Thursday to talk checkpoints. We checked receipts and we checked hearts. On the second Friday at the duplex, chili night attracted half the block, 3 curious raccoons, and one lady named Yolanda, who brought cornbread that made grown men reconsider their life choices. Evan introduced himself without a business card. He told the story of his dad learning to hang drywall from a neighbor in 1981. He burned the first tray of brownies and laughed without flinching. He made a joke that did not place him at the center of the universe. He activated the fire alarm and did not panic like a man whose whole personality is control. And I pondered, for the first time in a long time, whether my boy could be taught. At LaBelle on the no-makeup Saturday, Lydia stood behind the register looking 10 years younger and a mile braver. Women came in like they always do, tentative, apologizing for their bodies before they even tried anything on. Lydia reached across that counter and did what I had asked. She saw what wasn't on the hangers. A nurse named Keisha who worked the night shift walked out with a blazer she paid $5 for and a card that said, "You're the kind of person who sits with people while they're afraid." A high school senior who needed a prom dress paid in coins and an IOU, and Lydia put the dress in a garment bag, then asked, "May I hug you?" And when the girl nodded, she did. A proper, family kind of hug.
Sloane live-streamed for 10 minutes, barefaced beside her mother, saying words like support and community and no filter, like they might melt on her tongue. The comments were kinder than I expected. Some were snide anyway. I watched my granddaughter read one and not flinch. Marcus's scam class flourished. Word travels fast in a town where everyone's grandmother plays bridge with everyone else's. He taught them about phishing and shoulder surfing and the fact that Amazon will never call you to demand payment in gift cards. He lost his cool once when Mr. Patel clicked a pop-up by accident on purpose because he wanted to see what would happen. Marcus snapped, "You'll lose everything." And Mr. Patel calmly said, "Then teach me again like I am not stupid." Marcus sat down, eye level, and said, "Okay, we go again." When Mrs. Gainetti received a fake email from the IRS and deleted it instead of trembling, she brought Marcus a plate of biscotti and said, "For not letting the wolves in." Theo's birdhouses multiplied like tribbles. The early ones leaned like little Pisa towers, and then something clicked. His measurements sharpened, his hands slowed, his leadership loosened. He let the littler kids make choices that would surely look ugly and then didn't correct them because he remembered the point of shelter is not to be pretty. One evening, he slid his phone into his backpack deliberately and wrote in his log, "Watched the sky change to sherbet colors. Heard a cricket doing his taxes. Felt the world hold still. $10. Noah fell on his face and then stood up and dusted off. On day 7, he confessed to his teacher that he had forgotten to do the reading and then did his best in class anyway, which earned him a small lecture and a big lesson. On day 10, he told his friend Ty that he didn't want to play soccer after school because he wanted to go home and draw. And Ty said, "Cool," and they made a plan for Wednesday instead. On day 13, he introduced the mail carrier by name in our kitchen like we were a talk show. "This is Ms. Perez. She is strong because she carries what we don't see." The mail carrier, who has seen everything, blinked fast. I won't lie. There were backslides.
Evan threw a little tantrum when the inspector told him the handrail height was off by an inch. Libya got caught staring into her phone camera in the stockroom, tilting her head to find an angle that made her feel like herself. Marcus scrolled crypto Twitter during a class break and flinched when a coin dipped, and then laughed at himself because, for once, the chart wasn't the most important thing in the room. Sloan filmed a coffee shop owner telling a story about his mother, and then cut the part where she cried because she didn't want anyone to think she was using tears for clicks. She put it back after Betty told her, "Honey, truth is not manipulation when it arrives with respect." Theo spiked his screen time one rainy day and wrote it down anyway. Noah asked if sarcasm counted as lying. "Only if you mean the opposite of what you say," I told him, "and if your mouth gets bigger than your kindness." Week 3 brought us to our first checkpoint, and my first moment of real doubt. Had I done the right thing? Faking death, even artfully and with legal supervision, feels like playing God when you're more suited to playing hostess. There's a meanness to it that I had to stare in the eye. But there's also truth. I had built a life of loving too quietly, and quiet love can be misunderstood for something less than steel. Sal brought me tea. "You're thinking you went too far," she said. "I'm thinking you finally went far enough." I went to bed that night with my heart hammering, and woke up to an email from Deshawn titled, "Progress on Evan." Attached were photos of a duplex that no longer looked like a cheap investment and more like a place where someone could sleep through the night. The backyard had a string of lights like fireflies trapped in glass. On the kitchen counter, a handwritten note from a neighbor that read, "Thank you for not flipping us." We were going to make it to the next checkpoint. Whether or not they ever finished, whether or not any of them ended up with a dime, I had already bought something priceless with my audacity. I had purchased time, where their hands learned new moves, their eyes adjusted to different light, and their mouths practiced words they'd never needed to say. He was about to get exactly what he deserved, and I had a front row seat. Don't go anywhere. The first checkpoint landed on a Tuesday, which felt appropriate. Tuesdays are where resolve goes to be tested. Deshawn set the conference room with folders and small bottles of water, like we were on a daytime panel about families and boundaries. Mabel brought oatmeal cookies that looked homely and tasted like secret cinnamon. Sal wore her choir pin because she said accountability is a sacred act. Betty had a pen that clicked like a metronome and a glare that could part a sea.
They trickled in, my brood, less cocky than before, but still wearing their habits like jackets they didn't realize were out of season. Evan arrived with the faintest smear of paint on one cuff. Lydia came with a tote bag stuffed with index cards and a pair of flats. Sensible, a new religion. Marcus carried a laptop and a coil of cables like a snake charmer. Sloan wore sunscreen and no mascara, and I noticed I could see her freckles again. Theo had a tiny splinter under his thumb he refused to tweeze out because he said it was proof of life. Noah had a notebook labeled Truths with doodles of stars and one athletic sneaker. Deshawn opened with numbers. How much of the budget had been spent at the duplex, too much on trim, not enough on drywall screws, how many bra donations had gone to the shelter, 63, which made Betty put a hand on her heart. How many seniors had attended the classes and how many of them reported deleting a suspicious email this week, 21 and 7, which Marcus tried to play cool but his ears turned pink. How many unfiltered kindness episodes had been posted, 4. How many birdhouses had been built and actually hung in the park, 9. And how much money Noah's mouth had cost him, $55, which made him wince and grin at the same time. Then came stories, the currency that always tells the truth of numbers. Evan cleared his throat. His voice came out lower than usual, softer around the edges. Maple Street is a beast. Floor joists were not what I was told they were. Translation, he'd bought a pig in a poke because the spreadsheet had looked pretty. I learned to use a sander. I learned to cuss in 3 languages from retired men who have opinions about everything. The last part was delivered with the ghost of a smile. We had chili night, people came, someone brought cornbread that should be illegal. I slept on the floor in Unit A to get a feel for the space and woke up to the upstairs neighbor walking at 5 a.m. like a herd of caribou. We're making progress. Any attempts at shortcuts? Betty asked lightly.
Evan stared at the table. He tried to comp in appliances through a partnership, declined. He flicked a glance at Deshawn. Message received. Lydia folded her hands like a student called to the front. Day 3, a woman from the shelter put a blouse in her bag without paying. I saw her. We made eye contact. She looked like she wanted the floor to open up and take her away. I walked over. I said, "We have 2 prices here right now. What you can pay and what you can't. If you can't, that's okay. But let's treat both like choices we are allowed to make in daylight." She started crying. I started crying. We hugged. I gave her the blouse. She came back the next day with a bag of donated jeans and $3 and a gratitude I don't know what to do with. "What did you do with it?" Sal asked gently. Lydia blinked. "I wrote it on an index card and taped it under the counter so I could borrow it later." Marcus went next. Mrs. Giannetti called a phone number from a text that said it was her bank. I happened to be there. I took the phone gently like it was a small animal and said, "We don't talk to wolves." Then I taught her how to block numbers. She brought biscotti that chipped a molar, and I ate 2 because I'm learning reciprocity. He paused, rubbed the back of his neck. "Also, I lost money this week on a project." He couldn't say coin in front of Mabel, I think. "And I didn't check my phone during class. I checked after. It still hurt, but I felt oddly proud." Sloane intertwined her fingers. "I posted the barber shop, the florist, the mechanic, and Mrs. Chen, who runs the mini mart and gives free bananas to kids. I didn't use filters. My engagement dropped. A brand DM'd to say they love my community pivot, but they need faces snatched, which I think is marketing for insecure. I told them no. I filmed a coffee shop owner who relapsed last year and is 1 year sober. He cried. I asked permission. He said yes. I cried behind the camera. Betty made me put it back when I tried to cut it. I'm being honest. It's messy. I'm messy." Theo's turn. "We built 19 birdhouses. 9 are up. 1 fell because I didn't anchor the screw right. We had a funeral for it. I'm teaching kids to measure from the 1-inch mark if the tape end is wonky. I didn't know that. Yesterday, I watched a sunset with Justo. It looked like sherbet. We talked about whether birds get cold and if they dream. I put my phone away on purpose 4 times. I miss it less."
Noah pulled his notebook to his chest like armor. "I told the truth a lot, and it cost me money. I told Aunt Lydia the dress looks like a tomato, and she said honesty needs manners. I told Miss Perez, the mail carrier, that I think she's strong, and she said, I see what is heavy. I didn't lie, even when Theo asked me who took his last gummy, and I knew he would be mad." He took a breath. "I'm planning the talent show. I'm scared nobody will come, and also scared everyone will come. Those can both be true." Mabel handed out little gold star stickers because she's an unapologetic kindergarten teacher to the marrow. She stuck one on Marcus's laptop, and he pretended to be embarrassed. Betty slid a sticker to Lydia, who placed it on her plain, bare face like a tiny badge. We set new goals and then sent them back into the world with their colored assignments humming like beacons. This was working. Not neatly, not without friction. But my old librarian soul knows good progress when she sees it. The kind that sticks even if the prize evaporates. The second week brought weather, and with it a lesson. Character leaks out when skies turn ugly. On Thursday overnight, rain muscled in like a bouncer. The Maple Street duplex roof, offended by gravity, let it in. Evan called Deshawn at 6 a.m., voice tight. "We've got water in the living room, ceiling clouding like watercolor. I can't fix a roof by myself." "Volunteers?" Deshawn asked. Evan, to his credit, didn't say what he wanted to say about liability. He called. They came. One retired firefighter named Earl, mustache, stories, opinions, showed up with a tarp and a hat that said, "Trust me, I've seen worse." They climbed, they covered, they cussed like saints under their breath, so the neighborhood kids wouldn't learn any new vocabulary. Evan hammered with a precision that would have made his father proud, if not for the tiny squeal he made every time a nail resisted. Later, he admitted to someone, I heard about it 2 hours after it happened, because towns are telephones with legs, that he'd been tempted to hire a crew and pretend he hadn't. He didn't.
He put up the tarp, and then, when the rain moved on, he called a roofing class at the community college because Earl said, "You want to keep that ceiling dry? You better learn a few things that aren't on your spreadsheet." Lydia met a different kind of thunder. A regular, one of her high-dollar clients with a taste for dresses that don't allow full meals, walked in, saw the pay-what-you-can sign, and announced, in the carrying voice of a woman who has never been told no, "So this is charity now?" Lydia's cheeks went pink, her hand went instinctively to her hair where extensions would have been. "It's community," she said. "And before you ask, yes, the same rules apply to you. Pay what you can. Pay more if you want to. But you can't buy your way to the front of this line." The woman sniffed and Instagrammed the sign with a caption that included the word performative. The comments lit up. Sloane waded into the thread with the kind of grace she has when she forgets she's on stage. "I filmed my mom barefaced giving a teenager a prom dress and a hug. You can't fake that kind of ugly crying." Half the town clapped. The other half watched with popcorn. Lydia kept handing out cards that said things like, "You look like you would remember to feed someone's cat when they're away," and the world tilted appropriately. Marcus's week cracked open on Tuesday at 11:13 a.m. when Mrs. Patel, Mr. Patel's wife, a woman with gentle hands and a spine of rebar, shuffled in clutching a postcard that looked official and wasn't. "They say I owe taxes on gift cards," she whispered. Marcus's face went very still. He asked her to sit. He walked through all the signs, every one of them. He dialed the number in front of her, put it on speaker, and when the person on the other end said, "IRS gift card department," Marcus said, "The IRS does not have a gift card department," and hung up. Then he printed a report form and helped her file it. Later, he told me, through Mabel, who hears all, that he'd never felt more useful with a keyboard. Sloane, meanwhile, had a brand deal implode. Her agent, slick and kind and convincing, called and said, "The skincare line loves your energy, but would prefer you to return to your more aspirational content. The kindness series is sweet, but it doesn't convert." Sloane sat in her car behind LaBelle and cried, quiet and angry at once. Then she texted me, or she would have if she knew I was breathing. Instead, she texted Lydia, who came out with 2 grape sodas, sat on the hood of the car, and said, "I am 30% businesswoman and 70% mother, which equals 100% who cares what they think." They drank soda, they planned episode 5 at the animal shelter, and decided they'd include the names of long-timers who needed homes. "I'll do the VO," Sloane sniffed, "and I won't say, 'Don't forget to like and subscribe,' even once." Lydia left. "You can say it once. We still have rent."
Theo's crew expanded. He put a sign-up sheet on the community board at the park, complete with glitter glue. 6 kids signed up, and 1 dad. They learned that bureaucracy is just a long word for ask permission before you drill into public wood. They met a park ranger named Denise who said, "You can't put that there, you can put it here." And Theo learned to hear no as not like that. He built a prototype with a raccoon-proof entrance after watching a video of a raccoon gymnastics class. And I swear I love these modern children for their ability to bring the entire world to the garage via YouTube and then put it down and pick up a real screwdriver. Noah told truths like a faucet turned on too far. He told his coach he didn't want to play in Saturday's game because his stomach felt twisty when he ran in front of screaming parents. The coach said, "Take the bench, kiddo. Cheer like a champ." He told his principal that a boy was bullying another boy in the lunch line, and then ate lunch with both to broker a peace with tater tots. He told his mother that he misses me. He used my name out loud in the kitchen like he was summoning me. "I miss Gran," he said. "I talked to the picture." His mom kissed his hair. "Me too," she said. I went into my bedroom and held Hank's sweater until the ache softened. And just when he thought he had me backed into a corner, he forgot who he was dealing with. Stick with me, because you'll want to see how this plays out. Because the rumors started. It came from the direction rumors always do, sideways and wearing a borrowed coat. Someone saw someone who looked like me at the farmer's market, laughing with Sal over tomatoes. Someone heard Deshawn say she on the phone.
Someone swore up and down my geraniums looked too perkily watered for a dead woman. A neighbor posted in the community group, "Is Mrs. Whitaker," and left the question mark dangling like a spider. The town responded with memes, casseroles, and outrage. Lydia called Deshawn. She said, "Just tell me, is my mother alive?" He used the same eyebrow choreography as before, except this time they were on the phone and she couldn't see, which he admitted later was possibly the meanest thing he's ever done. "Mrs. Whitaker will reveal what she chooses when she chooses," he said. I listened to the rumors swirl and made a decision that felt like removing a splinter with tweezers. I wrote another video. We scheduled a midpoint review, and I filmed a message in the blue cardigan people now associated with me, like a TV costume. "Hi, my loves," I said to the camera. "It's Ellie. I hear the town is buzzing like a neon sign. Some of you think I'm gone, some of you think I'm hiding. I'm neither. I'm here, watching, proud, and stubborn. I will see you soon. Keep going." We played it privately to the 6 of them, no grand announcement, just a quiet acknowledgement in that oak-paneled room. Lydia put her head down on the table and cried like relief unclenched a fist. Evan cursed under his breath and then laughed in the same inhale. Marcus said, "Gran's alive," like he was testing the wiring on the words. Sloane reached across the table to hold her mother's hand without filming it. Theo asked, "Can I show my friends the birdhouses when she comes back?" Noah said, very small, "I knew it." "Why?" Evan asked when he could form sentences. "Why do this to us?" I pressed play. My video self answered him. "Because I raised you to stand up straight and tell the truth. And somewhere along the way, I taught you to bend until you were bent double. I am correcting my own curriculum. And because grief reveals us, I needed to know what you would do when I thought I wasn't in the room." "Are we being graded?" Marcus blurted, and then winced because that sounded like a joke, and it wasn't. "Yes," my video self said, "but not by numbers, by the way the light falls on your faces when you're kind." We left it there. No reveal to the town yet, no parade. Just my family, a room, and a new shared oxygen. They went back into their tasks with a second wind, the kind you get at mile 10 when you remember why you started running. Evan had to confront the part of the assignment he'd avoided, moving into Unit A, for a month. He packed a bag reluctantly. He stood in his immaculate kitchen and tried to choose which knives to take like a man planning to perform surgery on his own ego. He loaded up his BMW with a suitcase, 2 crisp shirts, and a coffee maker that looked like it required a pilot's license. In Unit A, the countertop was older than some marriages. The stove was honest. The bed frame creaked. The kids upstairs ran like they had places to be and joy to spend. On night 1, he lay there and listened to life. On night 3, he baked cornbread. Yolanda's recipe. She'd written it down for him on a recipe card that started with, "First, breathe." He ate a square hot as sin and thought about the time he was 12 and Hank taught him to flip a pancake. He slept. On day 6, a letter from the housing authority arrived in the duplex mailbox. One of the potential tenants had a voucher and a complicated backstory. Evan stood on the porch and stared at bureaucracy in paper form. He called Deshawn. I don't know how to do this." Deshawn said, "Go to the office. Ask for help. You're not less if you ask." Evan went. He waited in a plastic chair with people he pretends do not exist when he buys properties. He told the lady at the desk he was new. She smiled like she had seen worse men, better men, and a lot of the in-between. "Welcome to the work," she said, and guided him through the forms. He came out an hour later with a list of inspections, a due date, and a feeling I can only describe as respect. Lydia faced a different kind of paperwork, a letter from her landlord reminding her of brand alignment expectations. LaBelle had always been a high-gloss shop in a strip of high-gloss shops, and a pay-what-you-can week didn't fit the vibe. Lydia made an appointment. She wore flats. She brought the spreadsheet of donations and the thank you notes from the shelter and the comments from women who said they felt seen. She sat across from a man who named his shoes when he polished them. "This is temporary," she said, looking him in the eye. "It's also necessary. If it costs me, so be it. I'll cut my draw. I'll sell my handbags, but I'm not putting the mirror back up until the week is over." He blinked like someone had thrown open blinds. "It's your lease," he said. "Do what you want in your space. Just don't let it spill into the parking lot." She smiled. "The parking lot is where we're hosting the bra drive." He stared. "Invite your wife," Lydia said. "She'll understand." Marcus, after class on Thursday, got cornered by a kid in a hoodie hovering near the back stacks. "Hey," the kid said, all nerves. My granddad keeps getting calls. Says they're gonna turn off the power. He cries sometimes. Could you tell him it's fake?" Marcus looked at the kid like he'd never seen him before. "Bring him tomorrow," he said. "We'll practice hanging up." The kid brought his grandfather, a man who lived in a body like an old oak tree, gnarled but still strong. When the phone rang at precisely noon, with the number spoofed to look local, Marcus gestured. "This is your moment." The old man answered, listened, and then, with a tremble, Marcus felt in his own bones, said, "No," and hung up. Everyone cheered. The kid pretended to be too cool to smile, and then blew his cover. Sloane filmed at the animal shelter. She got on the floor in clean jeans and let a pit mix named Daisy sit in her lap and lick the mascara she wasn't wearing. She told a story of a volunteer who slept in her car 2 nights so she could take a foster to the vet. She paid the adoption fee for a dog named Captain, whose eyes made you think of forgiveness. She posted the video with captions big enough for her grandmother to read if her grandmother had social media, which I don't. The engagement was still weird, still dipping and rising like a new loaf, but the comments were real. "I adopted Captain today," someone wrote. "He snores like a chainsaw." Sloane cried in the car again, this time only happy tears. Theo's birdhouses started receiving residents. He and Justo walked through the park with binoculars like a couple of tiny grandpas and wrote down which houses got visitors. House 7, 2 sparrows, squabble level medium. House 3, bluebird scoping but undecided. Needs more privacy? He installed a little fence, with permission, that did nothing except make House 3 look like a tiny cottage in a fairy tale, and the bluebird moved in the next day, which made Theo puff up with a pride that wasn't about screens or levels, just the ancient human satisfaction of building something and watching it matter. Noah got to work on the talent show like a small Broadway producer with a conscience. He booked the community center for a Saturday, made flyers with a pencil and a ruler, and told the truth to anyone who would listen. "I'm scared it will be bad, and I'm excited it will be good." He practiced introductions in the bathroom mirror he was allowed to look into. "This is Jamal. He has a laugh that makes people laugh even when he doesn't want them to laugh. This is Maria. Her hands are very gentle and very fast when she plays piano. Also, she does my math facts without blinking." He got called corny, and he didn't care. Honesty can sound corny to people who forgot what it feels like.
Then came the first real fail. Not a tiny stumble, the kind of fail that makes a person throw up their hands and declare the whole exercise a wash. Sloane put an affiliate link in a caption. She thought it was harmless. "If you want to donate to the shelter, here's a link, and also here's the water bottle I use." She used her usual shortener. It looked like the usual snake of letters. Betty, who reads faster than the New York Times, clicked. "This here goes through a referral," she said, tapping the screen with the ferocity of a woman who has run 50 raffles without losing a ticket. "We said no sponsors." Deshaun called Sloane in. He wasn't stern, he was disappointed, which is worse. "I wasn't thinking," Sloane said, cheeks red. "No, I was thinking. I was thinking like I always do. Monetize or it didn't happen. I'm sorry." She took the link down, posted a correction, and wrote, "I did a dumb, greedy thing in the middle of a good thing. This is me fixing it." Half the comments forgave her, some didn't. She didn't answer the mean ones. Progress.
Evan's fail came with a bang. He hired Dale, the contractor with the zip code biceps, just for guidance. He told himself it didn't count as outsourcing if Dale only showed up for advice, despite the fact that Dale carried a tool belt and a timesheet. Earl matted him out, bless him. Earl came to chili night and told Mabel, boy hired help. Says he didn't. I've been married long enough to know the smell of a fib. We confronted Evan at the checkpoint. He went very still, then very angry, then very honest. I don't like being bad at things, he said. I am not built for sanding. No one is built for sanding, Deshawn replied. That's why the chili is free. We docked Evan for the outsourcing attempt, and he didn't argue. He looked like a boy caught copying homework. Then he showed up 3 mornings in a row at 7 without coffee because penance is punctual. Lydia's fail was subtler. On the last day of Pay What You Can, she rolled the mirror back out to calm the chaos. She told herself it would help with sizing and line flow. She didn't announce it, she just did it. A woman from the shelter tried on a dress, turned, saw herself, and flinched like the mirror had slapped her. Lydia saw it. She turned the mirror back around. She apologized. I forgot the assignment, she said softly. The mirror's more than glass. She extended the event 2 days to make amends and took the mirror off the floor again. Several women showed up that second weekend with their friends and said, we don't need the mirror. Help us see what you see. Marcus's fail was almost fatal to the class vibe. He used the phrase, that's obvious, when explaining fishing to a man who had never owned a computer. The room chilled. Mabel raised one eyebrow so slowly a glacier got jealous. Marcus stopped, took a breath, and said, I'm sorry. Nothing about this is obvious. That's why scammers make money. He started again. He set the entire class up with a mnemonic. When in doubt, shout it out. Ask someone you love before you click. Mrs. Giannetti started using it on her sons. The sons reported in with eye rolls. Progress. Theo's fail was a box of nails and a rainy Saturday. The kids didn't show. The project felt dumb. The birdhouses looked like mistakes stacked on wood. He texted Justo, this is stupid. Justo, who is not a philosopher but sometimes is, wrote back, good stupid or bad stupid? Theo stared at the rain. I don't know, he wrote. He went to the garage anyway, by himself, hammered quietly, and built one birdhouse he measured 4 times before cutting once. It was square. He put it on the workbench and stared at it like a new friend who might become a best one. Noah's fail was a lie by omission. He told his mom he finished his reading when he had only read the bolded words. He caught himself 10 minutes later, circled back to the kitchen and said, I did not read. I only read the thick words. I am sorry. His mom hugged him like a truth was worth more than a worksheet. He put $5 in the jar. Feels like a tax. It's a tithe to your better self, I wanted to tell him. I wrote it down instead for later. I know this part is hard to hear, but it's important. The truth was about to come out and it was going to be glorious. Because right there, while each of them was learning to fall forward, the town decided to test our resolve. Someone spray-painted fake on LaBelle's back door in letters that dripped like they were ashamed. Lydia found it at dawn before coffee. She stood there in her flats and her clean face and felt her throat go tight. She could have called the landlord. She could have called the police. She called the shelter. You know those broad donations? She said into the phone. I need something else. I need 6 women and a bucket of primer.
They came. Women who had been pushed out of places, into cars, through doors, and yet still showed up for each other with paint and jokes that made the morning better. They painted the back door a color Lydia chose called courage gray. They left the word fake under the paint where it would show through only if you squinted, like a fossil, to remind everyone that lies fade. Sloane filmed the edges, the hands, the laughter, not the faces, because consent matters. She posted it with the caption, when they call us fake, we repaint. A local hardware store DM'd to offer free supplies. Lydia took the rollers, declined the hashtag. Evan had his own parking lot moment. A man from down the block walked by the duplex, saw the string lights in the back, and muttered that the neighborhood is going soft. Evan, old Evan, would have let it slide or worse.
turned it into a lecture on property values. New Evan walked out with a bowl of chili and said, "Eat before you judge." The man ate, slow, then nodded once. "Coulda used more salt," he said. Evan laughed, and I wrote in my notebook, "He laughed without winning." Marcus caught a scam attempt mid-class and turned it into improv. Someone's phone rang and extended warranty call. He put it on speaker, played along long enough to illustrate the beats, fear, urgency, isolation, and then hung up. He told them they want you alone and scared, so be together and loud. He handed out index cards with the library number and his own, which made Mabel press a gold star on his forehead like a benediction. Theo organized a birdhouse parade for the kids who did show up, the few, the faithful. They marched through the park carrying the ones they'd made, held high like trophies, singing a song they wrote that consisted entirely of the word bird at different volumes. A pair of joggers stopped and clapped. Ranger Denise rolled her eyes affectionately and took a picture for the park's bulletin board. Later, Theo and Justo lay in the grass and counted clouds. "This is good, stupid," Theo said, deciding, and drew a star in his log. Noah finalized the talent show lineup and worried like a small producer with big dreams. He asked the lady at the front desk if he could borrow a clipboard because "I think people listen to you more if you have a clipboard." She gave him 2. He practiced the opening. "Welcome to the truth show." Not truth like facts, though those are great, but truth like compliments you can keep. He had a pocket full of note cards that said things like, "Your laughter sounds like summer," and "Your magic trick is confusing in a good way," and "You are very brave for trying that high note." A week later, at the second checkpoint, the room felt different. Same oak paneling, same bottles of water, but the air was warmer somehow, like we'd opened a window. Evan sat without checking his phone. Lydia touched the back of her neck where the nape hairs sweat when you're nervous, and then didn't fuss with it. Marcus's laptop had stickers now, "Libraries are for everyone," and a tiny birdhouse Theo had stuck there in Sharpie. Sloane's freckles were at full attendance. Theo had 2 fewer splinters and more posture. Noah held his notebook like a captain holds a map. "I have a confession," Evan said before we even started. Deshaun prepared his eyebrows. "I didn't believe in this until I heard the kids upstairs run at 5 a.m. and realized I've forgotten what real life sounds like in a place that's not insulated from its own heartbeat. I'm not finished. I might not finish on time, but I'm learning how to be a landlord who says things like smoke alarm with pride." He looked at me through the glass he couldn't see and somehow saw me anyway. "Thanks, Mom." Lydia spoke quietly. I put the mirror back on the floor. I took it away again. I extended the event. I am a woman who sells dresses and sometimes sells an idea of being lovable. I would like to sell a different idea, that we are already lovable. Marcus shrugged, a man learning not to armor up. He said obvious. I apologized. I'm saying it again here. I'm sorry. I want to teach like I'm talking to my grandma and also like I'm talking to myself last year. And Gran, I don't know why I thought money was only money when I could buy something like Mrs. Patel hanging up on a wolf. Sloane sat up straight like someone in a movie about redemption. She put a referral link in her caption. She took it down. She wrote the truth. She lost followers. I know the numbers like I know my own face. But the DMs I get now are from people who say, "I cried with you." I'm thinking maybe we underestimate crying as a KPI. She smiled. That was a joke, mostly.
Theo raised his hand, which made me irrationally proud. "I learned that wood is a liar," he said. "It looks straight, but it's not. You have to work with it, not against it. Also, birds are indecisive. Also, sunsets are better with friends." He beamed. Birdhouse 3 has a bluebird. We named him Mr. Blue. He has a wife named Mrs. Blue. That's not creative, I know. We're working on it. Noah bounced in his chair. My talent show is Saturday. I am scared. I am happy. I wrote new compliments. I didn't lie today yet. I might. If I do, I will tell you right away. Also, I would like to ask if I can tell everyone at the show that my gran is alive. The room went absolutely still. Lydia's hand flew to her mouth. Evan made a noise that might have been a laugh or a sob. Deshawn's left eyebrow twitched. Sal squeezed my knee under the table so hard I thought I'd bruise. Not yet, my video self said when we played the next recorded message. One more week, then we do it together. They nodded like a family. After the meeting, we dispersed. Life resumed its insistence. The duplex passed the handrail inspection on the second try. Evan learned to love a level. He also learned to love Earl, who told stories about the factory fire in '93 that contained an entire curriculum on bravery without using the word. On chilly night, a woman brought tamales and a shy son and asked about the wait list for Unit B. Evan told her the truth. 2 inspections to go, then his signature, then hers. She nodded. I bring more tamales when we move, she said. He laughed. Deal. LaBelle hosted a no mirror, no makeover event that ended in a group photo on the sidewalk. Women of every size, color, age, and haircut, laughing like the kind of laughter that adds years to your life. Sloane took the photo with a timer and stood in the back barefaced next to her mother. Later that night, a box showed up on Lydia's back step. A brand new security camera from the hardware store guy, a note inside that read, "For courage, bray doors, and open hearts." Lydia cried a little and installed it herself using a YouTube video and a lot of cursing she thinks I don't know she knows. Marcus got recruited by accident into repairing 3 printers in one afternoon because you're the tech guy, right? He fixed exactly one and taught 2 people how to proceed without printing by using QR codes, which is an act of public service no one asked for but everyone needed. He also started bringing oatmeal cookies to class because he learned that sugar makes learning sweeter and good biscotti breaks teeth. Tio convinced Ranger Denise to host a build day and 12 kids showed up with adults attached. They built in assembly line style, a mess of whacking and laughter. Husto's little cousin glued her fingers together and declared it science. Tio added a no screws in pockets rule after someone sat down wrong. He wrote it on a poster with a bird drawn in the corner that looked like it was laughing. Noah's talent show arrived. The community center smelled like floor cleaner and popcorn. Parents sat on folding chairs, whispering prayers and schedules. Noah stood on stage in a shirt he called his truth shirt, which looked exactly like all his other shirts, and took a breath that made me hold mine behind our glass. He said, "Welcome," voice wobbling and then steadying. "Tonight we're telling the truth about what we like about each other." He introduced Jamal, whose laugh really does sound like summer. He introduced Maria, and she killed Chopin with kindness. He introduced a magician who dropped his cards and kept going, and Noah said, "That is bravery," and everyone clapped louder than before. At the end, he said, "I want to tell one last truth. My gran is alive." He clapped his hand over his mouth like he had said a bad word. The room gasped. He looked at me where he could not see me. He whispered into the microphone, "Oops." The audience thought it was part of the act and laughed. Lydia had tears under her eyes like eyeliner. Evan's jaw clenched and then relaxed. Deshawn took a very dignified sip of water like it was whiskey. After the show, the kids were sugared and happy. Parents thanked Noah, real thanks, the kind that sees a boy and tells him he matters. He put $5 in the jar for the slip, then took it back out when Deshawn ruled that truths spilled from joy are not lies, they're foreshadowing. We were 1 week from the reveal. I ironed my blue cardigan like armor. I wrote letters, real letters, with the loops Hank loved, to each of them, the ones they'd only get if they completed their tasks. I sealed them with stickers because I'm still me. I baked lemon squares for the reveal because justice is easier with powdered sugar. I slept badly and woke up better. 2 days before the reveal, the duplex's water heater gave up the ghost with a groan. Evan stood in the basement, water around his shoes, and considered screaming. He called Earl. Earl sighed, showed up with a wrench, and together they muscled a new heater into place they'd bought with the community fund Deshawn had helped them secure with a grant Evan swore he'd never apply for in his life. He banged his knuckles, bled a little, and laughed because that's how a person learns to be useful. He wrote me an email he didn't send that began, "I'm sorry I made your love a ledger."
That same afternoon, someone posted a thread with a blurred photo of me at the farmer's market. Blue cardigan, pearls. "Is this?" the caption said. The comments lit like brush. Saul texted Deshawn. "Time's up?" He texted back. 2 days. She texted, "You are a mean man." He texted, "Yes." Sloane filmed episode 10, exactly where we planned to drop the truth. She sat on my back porch. She framed the shot on the sill where Hank used to set his coffee. She didn't turn on the pretty light. She looked into the camera without blinking and said, "Sometimes you hide to see who you are to people. Sometimes you hide to see who you are to yourself." My grandmother is alive. She asked us to do hard things. We are doing them. Not perfectly, but together. Then she turned the camera around and filmed the empty chair beside her. "She'll sit here in 2 days," she said. "We'll talk. We'll not filter it." The internet did what it does. Some people cheered, some howled that it was manipulative, some wrote think pieces in the comments. Lydia closed her laptop and went on a bra run for the shelter. Marcus unplugged and printed out the class materials for next week in case the Wi-Fi went out. Theo hung another birdhouse. Noah went to sleep holding his notebook like a treasure map. We have a way of measuring ourselves in this family. Who shows up, when, and with what? The reveal day would be our exam, and I say that as a woman who hates exams and loves open books. The plan was private, just the 6 of them, me, Deshawn, and a lemon sugar truth bomb. But cities are not made of plans. The morning of, Lydia's landlord asked if he could bring his wife. "She wants to say something," he said, sheepish, like a boy about to admit he ate the last cookie. "She cried at your no mirror day." Lydia shrugged. "Sure." Evan asked if Earl could come. He brought the tarp. Deshawn said no, but he can have lemon squares after. Marcus asked if Mrs. Gianetti could say a blessing over the Wi-Fi. She's Catholic, but she prays broadly. I laughed. Tell her to ask her priest how he feels about libraries. We set the room, oak paneling, water bottles, and one vase with the cheap daisies I like. I put the lemon squares in the center like a communion we could all agree on. Then I waited in the little side room where I'd been breathing this whole time, and I listened to my family gather. They were louder now, their voices less sharp. They sounded, I realized, like people who had been in rooms together without me and learned to be gentle, if not yet fluent. Deshawn cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming," he said. The man could say it in his sleep by now. "Before we begin, a note. Today's for family. The town will get its own version later. Today belongs to the 6 of you and the woman you love, whether you remembered it every minute or not." He looked at me through the glass, like a conductor signaling the violins. I stood. I smoothed the blue cardigan. I picked up the plate of lemon squares, because a woman should never enter a room empty-handed, not even if she is about to change the way the light lands on faces forever. I walked in. Lydia made a sound that was half laugh, half grief ripped and re-sewn. Evan stood up so fast his chair skittered. Marcus said "gran" like a prayer he wasn't sure he was allowed to say. Sloane's hand flew to her freckled cheek. Theo smiled so big I saw his baby self. Noah ran to me, stopped midway because he is 12 and he remembers rules. And then I opened my arms and he flew the second half like a boy who has been waiting a very long time to land. "I'm here," I said, "because you should always start with the obvious. I've been here. I saw it all. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry, and also I'm not sorry. That last part is important. Women my age spend half our lives apologizing for taking up space, and the other half apologizing for learning not to apologize. I decided this reveal would include both the regret for the pain and the steel for the purpose. We sat.
We ate lemon squares with powdered sugar that gets on your mouth and makes you look like a joyful raccoon. We told truths. I told them about the hospital room and the way love looked like a ledger. I told them about my kitchen legal pad and the 2 columns. I told Hank would have a field day with the birdhouses. I told them I cried watching them do hard things, and I laughed when they tripped and stood back up because that's the plot of every human story worth hearing. Each of them told me something I didn't know too. Evan said, "I'm scared all the time, and I cover it with competence." Lydia said, "I've been hungry for approval you spent on me when I was little, and I didn't save any for later." Marcus said, "I've built a life on moving fast because I'm afraid if I slow down, I'll feel dumb." Sloane said, "I hid behind filters because I'm afraid of what my face says about my mother and about you." Theo said, "Sometimes I forget I have a body if my hands aren't dirty." Noah said, "I thought lying was how you keep people happy, but it turns out telling the truth is how you keep yourself."
We cried, we laughed, we made a plan for the last stretch, because if you think a reveal ends a story, you've never read a good one. We had 2 weeks left on the clock, tasks to finish, hearts to strengthen, systems to try and fail and try again. He was about to get exactly what he deserved. I thought of Evan's plan to flip versus live, Marcus's habit of skimming, Lydia's mirror, Sloane's links, Theo's shortcuts, Noah's easy fibs, and I had a front row seat. Don't go anywhere. There's a particular hush that happens after a reunion, the sound of plates settling, chairs scooting back, adrenaline packing its bags. After I walked into that room in my blue cardigan and powdered sugar smile, and after the crying and the laughing and the promises, we all went home a little dazed and a lot determined. 2 weeks left, 6 assignments hanging in the air like laundry on a bright day, and me with a stack of letters I hoped I'd get to hand out. Hope is a powerful seasoning. It can also make you forget the recipe. We didn't tell the town yet. That was the plan. Finish what we could, then open the curtains. In the meantime, I became a very busy ghost. I slipped through scenes like a breeze and let my team do the talking. Deshawn handled rules, Mabel handled warmth, Betty handled the tiny lies that creep in around the edges when we're tired. Sal handled snacks and slipping truth into jokes like vitamins into applesauce. Evan rolled into week 5 with bruised knuckles and a housing inspector who finally learned his name. He wore old jeans that didn't know him yet and a t-shirt from a college he didn't attend. The man loves a thrift store find when it's ironic. He knew the layout of both units in the dark now, the spot where the floor creaked like a soprano, the window that always stuck on humid days, the corner where someone had loved a dog because the baseboard bore the memory of a chew. He could have hired a crew and been done by now. He said as much one morning to Earl, who was stirring chili like it owed him money. "You could," Earl allowed, "but then you'd still be you." Evan made a thoughtful face I hadn't seen since he was 9 and asked me if ants sleep. He patched drywall like a man trying to teach his hands a new language, and sometimes they talked back. Lydia met with the shelter director, her name is Dawn and it fits, about turning leftover dresses into job interview outfits. "Not just the dress, the notes you write. Can we bundle those?" Lydia blinked. "The compliments?" "Call them references of the heart," Dawn smiled. "We'll tuck them into pockets." Lydia wrote a dozen on her lunch break, barefaced, chewing a granola bar like penance, and I could feel the old hunger in her, this time not for applause, but for usefulness. It looks different on her. It looks good. Marcus added an office hour to his class because seniors kept showing up with killer questions and grocery lists. He changed his sign-in sheet to name, phone, favorite cookie, because he finally understood what lures wolves away better than fear: relationship. He also started bringing a box of cheap reading glasses because half the folks weren't dumb, they just couldn't see. I watched him put a pair on Mr. Patel, step back, and grin like a magician whose trick finally landed. "Better?" "Better," Mr. Patel said, reading the paper like the world had turned up the brightness. Sloane filmed episode 11 in the laundromat on Vine. I warned her not to do it because laundromats are tender places. People cry there, and not for cameras. She did it anyway, but with a gentleness that made me proud. She filmed hands folding shirts and little kids in sock feet dancing on cracked linoleum.
She paid for 10 loads with her own card and taped a sign to the change machine that said, "If you need a quarter, take 2. She sat with a mother who reminded me of me at 24, tired and game, and asked her what kindness looks like. "Someone holding my baby while I pee," the woman said, deadpan. She didn't film her face. She filmed the stroller and her own hands pushing it back and forth, steady as a metronome. "That's kindness," she said into the mic in her real voice. Theo's birdhouses became a tiny neighborhood with a politics of their own. Mr. Blue and Mrs. Blue reigned in House 3. House 7 was Sparrow City. Population, an argument. A chickadee checked out House 12 and left like a picky renter. He learned to scrape, sand, and rehang without taking it personally. He added a "no cats near the install zone" rule, which was unpopular with the cats and exactly correct. He brought home one spectacular splinter that made him yelp, and when I caught myself reaching for tweezers in my mind, I sat on my hands instead. He pulled it out himself and raised his eyebrow at the tiny spot of blood like, "Hello, body. Good to see you."
Noah, oh Noah, he kept a running tally on the kitchen chalkboard like a little accountant for truth. Days honest in a row, 6, then 7, then a sad 0, and then 1, like a comeback. The jar ate his money and then gave some back when he confessed in the moment and did better. He practiced talent show emceeing on the dog and then moved on to narrating life. "This is my mom," he said, putting an arm around Lydia one night while she chopped onions. "She makes brave choices out loud." She laughed and cried at the same time, making her own eyes water more than the onion did. About 9 days after my reveal to the 6 of them, the rumor reached a boil. I went out at dawn to clip basil and heard 2 ladies power walking down my block. "She's alive. I saw her buying tomatoes." "She is dead. My cousin said they had a service with lemon bars. Funeral food doesn't lie." They rounded the corner and saw me crouched in the herb bed like a garden gnome who'd come to life. We looked at each other for a long beat. Then one called, "Ellie?" like she was afraid to scare me off. "Surprise," I said, standing up slowly, putting my hands out like a magician finishing the trick. "You can stop sending casseroles. I'm here." They cried and scolded me in equal measure, which is the correct reaction to my brand of foolishness. We decided then, time to tell the town. But not yet. First, the final hurdles. We were so close. Close, as it turns out, is not always the same as done. Deshaun set the date for their last formal check-in. "Think of it as your dress rehearsal," he told them, which made Evan wince and Lydia straighten and Sloane light up. "We will check receipts, review footage, count birdhouses, read honesty journals, and eat cookies. Then, if we're satisfied, we'll set the public reveal." The week leading up to it was chaos. The good kind and the kind that makes you eat dinner over the sink. Evan discovered a code requirement he'd missed. Egress windows. He muttered egress like it was a curse, then Googled, then called Earl, then called a carpenter who was retired but bored. The man, whose name is Art, I swear, came over with a pencil behind his ear and a smirk that said, "Rookie." Together, they measured, cut, and installed like time was money, which it was. And when they finished, Evan leaned into the new window, took a deep breath of June, and said, "I haven't felt this useful in years." He wiped his dusty face with his sleeve and left one clean streak like a war stripe. I loved him fiercely in that moment, not for finishing, but for feeling. Lydia's supply chain hiccuped. Donations were up. We love our town. But sizes were all wrong. We are also our town. She put out a call for bras in sizes that are not celebrated on billboards, and a wave of women came through like a tide. She held a side yard fitting party. Strictly women, no cameras, laughter only. And for the first time in a long time, I watched her be with women without performing for them. She looked at a stranger's back, adjusted a strap, and said, "You deserve not to ache." That's retail. That's ministry. Marcus had his class ambushed by a scammer. You cannot make this up.
The library phone rang, and the voice on the other end said they were the library collections department and that anyone with overdue fines needed to pay. All of which is nonsense. Our library barely fines on purpose. Marcus put it on speaker and expertly dismantled the con while 30 elders took notes. When the scammer hung up, the entire reading room burst into applause. Polite, like church golf claps. But then Mabel whooped, and the whole place got rowdy. Marcus bowed. He's learning to accept applause without buying himself a crown. Sloane prepped for episode 12, Unfiltered Kindness, the reunion. She wanted me on camera, and I said no, for now. 1 more week, I told her, and she didn't pout. She filmed instead at the firehouse, telling the story of Earl and his tarp and the way old hands show young hands how to hold the weight. She cut it simply, let the wrinkles show, let the silence breathe. She posted it and then set her phone down and walked away. An act I consider holy. Theo's Birdhouse Brigade hit 50, technically. 50 bodies of wood shaped into small kindnesses, hung at responsible heights with Ranger Denise's blessing. Not all had tenants yet, but that's birds for you. They're like your most particular neighbor. They'll tell you with their absence what you did wrong. Theo built a bench near House 3, with permission, always with permission, so kids could sit and watch without shaking the trees. He named the bench Not a Screen with a paint pen. People laughed. People sat.
Noah hit day 20 of the Honesty Marathon like a runner seeing the stadium lights. He celebrated by telling the toll booth lady her eyeliner was sharp. She smiled so big she waved him through without paying, and then leaned out and yelled, "Tell your mother that's not a policy." He wrote it down in his journal as a free compliment. He was rightfully proud. And yet, oh, and yet, the last mile is where most of us blow it, either from nerves or from old habits showing up wearing disguises. 2 nights before the dress rehearsal, Evan got an email from a former partner offering to slide a small crew over to push the duplex through the final list. "Consider it a favor," the man wrote, oily as a diner grill. Evan almost said yes out loud in his empty unit. He stared at the half-installed baseboards and thought of spreadsheets and speed and all the years he believed he could buy completion. He took a breath and hit reply. "No, thanks, but no." He didn't even tell us then. I found out because Earl texted Sal, who told Mabel, who told me while passing a bag of sugar like we were old spies. Lydia's last day temptation looked different. The boutique's books were humming dangerously. She had dipped into her own savings to cover one thing, borrowed the store card to float another. A regular came in and asked if the pay-what-you-can discount applied to the new summer line. Lydia said, correctly, no. The woman sniffed. "Thought you were generous now." Lydia felt the heat crawl up her neck. "I am generous," she said calmly, "but I'm not a doormat." After the woman left, Lydia shut the door for 5 minutes and allowed herself the luxury of throwing a tiny private tantrum. No breakables, just old-fashioned muttering at the ceiling. Then she opened back up and kept going. Marcus had a DM slide into his feed from a software company offering to support the class with free licenses and referral rewards. He thought of the library's rusty computers and how much faster things would go if he had better tools. He also thought of me and my laugh that sounds like a kettle when I hear the word referral said like a lullaby. He wrote back, "No affiliates. If you want to help, donate to the library fund. Otherwise, take me off the list." They offered him a personal ambassador fee. He blocked them and put his phone face down. He ate a cookie and looked at the stained glass. Modern temptations are made of links and plausible deniability. Sloane filmed an episode with a foster mother who runs a pop-up pantry. Twitter, or whatever we're calling it now, piled on in the comments. "This is poverty porn," some said. "This is performative." "This is what we should do with platforms," others said. Sloane didn't argue. She pinned a comment that said, "Consent given. Gifts left with no strings. DMs open if you need resources." She called the foster mother afterward to check on her. That's the part you don't see in numbers. The private follow-up that costs time and makes no one famous. Theo's temptation was smaller and stickier. He met his screen's limit 30 minutes into a rainy afternoon. A new game dropped. His friends piled into a lobby with the urgency of teenagers avoiding chores. Theo stared at the controller like it might start singing his name. He set a timer for exactly 1 hour, then kept playing when it dinged because the level was almost over. When the rain let up, he went out to the garage and built angry, fast, sloppy. He split a plank, he swore, he wrote in the log, broke rule, lied to myself. Then he tore the page out, folded it small, and stuck it in his pocket. He stared at that pocket the rest of the day like it contained a hot coal. It did. Noah's temptation came in the shape of friendship. Ty told him a secret that wasn't his to tell, a juicy one. Noah almost spilled it to his brother because secrets are currency in middle school. He didn't. He ate his own restlessness like it was a sandwich of nails. He told the truth privately. I know something. It's not mine. I'm not telling. His brother said, okay, with a tween question mark. Noah wrote in his journal, truth, I have boundaries now, which made me grin like a lunatic. The dress rehearsal day arrived with Florida heat that pressed on your chest like an over-friendly aunt. We met in the room where so much had started. Deshaun did his eyebrow thing at me to say, ready? And I nodded. Lemon squares, water bottles, folders, my cardigan, check. Evan went first. Receipts, immaculate and ragged around the edges from being folded in pockets. Bruised knuckles, healing. Inspections, smoke alarms passed. Lead paint mitigated, egress installed. Backyard fence safe with a gate that does not trap small hands. Chilly attendance, robust. Community grants, secured. Living in Unit A for a month, Deshaun asked, and Evan nodded. 2 more nights, then back to my place. I'll miss the caribou, he smirked, soft. Any violations? Deshaun asked. Evan hesitated, just a flicker. I tried to hire help. I didn't, he set his jaw. I'm telling you because I don't want the old me in the room, not even shadow. Betty scribbled, then put her pen down. You swung a hammer. Yes, ma'am. Then you learned something money can't buy. She looked at Deshaun. Point for that.
Lydia presented a binder. If there's one thing a woman who spent 20 years being judged on presentation can do, it's make a binder sing. Donations traced, shelter receipts signed, index cards with compliment copies. We took photos to add to the walls later. Photos of no mirror day with smiling, unfiltered faces that weren't about selling, just about being. Did you go 1 full day at the register without makeup? Deshaun asked. Lydia lifted her chin. 2. Live stream? 10 minutes. Retouching? Lydia glanced at Sloane like a mother and a partner in crime. Sloane shook her head. We kept it ragged. Any breaches? I rolled the mirror back once, then rolled it away, then left it in the stock room and apologized. Betty looked at me. I nodded. Sometimes the old thing will walk itself back out, I said. The point is noticing whose house it's in. Marcus delivered numbers and stories like a man learning both matter. Attendance, 30 plus, with repeat offenders. His joke. Mabel scolded him with her eyebrows. He corrected to repeat scholars. 7 confirmed scam avoidances thanks to the class. Messages saved, phone logs printed. Network uptime, 98%. I sang to the router, he confessed. Compensation, $1 per hour, logged with shame and humor. Any violations? Deshaun prompted. Marcus took a breath. I nearly took a referral deal. I didn't. He swallowed. I also said obvious and had to apologize. Again, it's becoming a reflex. The apologizing, I mean. He looked at me. Gran, I'm trying to be a person who teaches without needing to be the smartest boy in the room. You're not a boy, I said, smiling. That's progress. Sloane handed us an external hard drive like it contained her heart. It did. 12 episodes, unfiltered, unsponsored. Captions with clear disclosures. 1 tablet correction post from when she tried to sneak in that link. Barefaced in at least half? Deshaun asked. 57%, Sloane said, good-natured about it. I ran the math. Any breaches? She shook her head. I put down my phone whenever a subject cried. I asked permission before I posted anything tender. I lost brands? I gained the good kind of tired, she laughed. My skin is mad at me, my soul isn't.
Theo brought the log and a splinter in a Ziploc like evidence. 50 houses installed, he declared, eyes bright. Resident birds, 22. We're still counting. I taught 9 kids to measure from the 1-inch mark. I hammered 10 thumbs. Any screen days over the limit? Deshawn asked. Theo looked at his shoes. The whole room held its breath, like a choir going into a quiet verse. Yes, he said finally. I went over twice. I wrote it down. He tore it out from the folded square from his pocket and handed it over like a confession. I tore it out because I didn't want to mess up the log. Betty took the paper, unfolded it, and slid it onto the table. She said, logs are for truth. Truth is messy. Theo nodded, eyes wet. Okay. Noah presented his journal with the pride of a child who knows his work is worth your full attention. 21 days across 3 calendar pages, because life, like pudding, rarely sets on schedule. He had more than the required truths. He had compliments that could change a person's day. He had a $5 IOU stapled to a page where he'd borrowed from the jar and then paid it back. Any lives? Deshawn asked. Yes, Noah said, cheerfully devastating. I lied by pretending I heard something when I didn't, because I didn't want to say, what? Again. I told the truth later. It cost me $5 and a little embarrassment. I'm okay. We all smiled. Embarrassment is a down payment on character.
We closed the folders. The room exhaled. I had planned to hand out the sealed letters right there, the ones I'd written to each of them for completing their tasks. I touched the stack, felt the weight, and felt hesitation. Not because they didn't earn them, not because they did, because something in me knew we weren't done. Even if the paperwork said we were close enough to declare victory in bowl alleys. I've been on this earth long enough to know the part after the checklist is where we show who we are. And just when he thought he had me backed into a corner, he forgot who he was dealing with. Stick with me because you'll want to see how this plays out. 2 things happened in fast succession, the kind of 1-2 punch that will teach you whether your spine is bent wire or tempered steel. First, the town got the news, not from us, but from a well-meaning friend of a friend who posted a photo of me as proof of life. The caption was sweet. Look who I ran into at the farmer's market. Our Ellie is alive. And the comments were a casserole of warm-hearted relief and hot-headed outrage. This is cruel, some said. This is brilliant, others said. This is content, a few vultures typed, circling. I shut the laptop and put my hand over my own pulse like a metronome. Second, the duplex failed its final safety inspection over something so small and so dangerous it made my hair stand up. A cheap extension cord snaked under a rug. Evan didn't put it there. One of the Chilly Night kids did to plug in a speaker. The inspector, not wrong, cited it. We could fix it in 15 minutes and pass, yes. Still, the red stamp went in the folder. Reinspect in 48 hours, the man said, right as the town took my name into its collective mouth and chew. We had planned our public reveal for Saturday at 3 in the community center. Now we were heading into it with a failed inspection, a bruised town, and a family mid-transformation. It felt like walking into church with your slip showing and a hymn stuck in your throat. Deshawn asked, postpone? I said, no. The truth doesn't improve with age when the rumor mill's running hot. We set the stage, folding chairs, daisies, a microphone that has always and will always squeal once at exactly the wrong moment. Sloane didn't put lights up. Lydia wore sunscreen and nothing else on her face. Evan took a deep breath like a man who knows how rooms full of opinions feel and walked toward them anyway. Marcus checked the Wi-Fi because of course he did. Theo lined up 3 birdhouses like props with Ranger Denise's blessing. Noah stood next to me and whispered, "Are we grounded?" And I whispered back, "A little." The room filled. You can always tell when a town loves you. They show up ready to be mad if needed and to forgive if possible. Mrs. Giannetti claimed the front row like a queen. Earl stood in the back with his arms crossed and his heart open. The landlord came with his wife and sat next to Dawn from the shelter, which in another era might have been a scandal and today felt like progress. Deshaun opened with procedure. Bless the man, he believes in preambles. He said this was legal and also tender. Both can be true. He explained the assignments without naming the exact dollar amounts involved because that part makes people feral. He introduced me, the dead woman currently alive, and I walked on stage with my cardigan and my lemon squares and my heart nearly thumping out of my chest. I said, I'm Ellie. I am sorry for the worry. I am not sorry for the lesson. I have watched this town love my family for decades, and I wanted to see what would happen if I loved them brave instead of easy. Turns out you all are the net that catches us when we try something big and dumb and beautiful. A few people clapped. A few people glared. Fair. I told a short version of the story, the hospital, the lemon squares, the 6 envelopes. I said words like inheritance and conditions and community, and watched the faces shift like clouds over the ocean. Then I did the only thing that ever really works in rooms like that. I got out of the way. Evan went first because the man loves to go toward hard things when he's decided they're his. He talked about egress windows like they'd stolen his lunch money and then taught him manners. He said, I slept on the floor and heard the kid upstairs run at 5 a.m. and remembered what it means to hear life overhead. He said he failed an inspection because of a cord and no one died, and he still learned. He said, I used to think I was generous because I cut checks. I am learning how to be generous with my time and with being bad at things in front of people. Earl hollered, welcome to the club, and the room left.
Lydia spoke, steady. She told the mirror story and the spray paint story and the bra drive that turned into an altar call. She said, I sell dresses. For a while, I sold women a feeling I cannot actually deliver. This week, we sold dignity. The landlord's wife cried. Lydia saw and handed her a tissue without pausing the thought. That's growth you can measure with a yardstick. Marcus told them about the scammers and about Mrs. Patel and about the kid in the hoodie who brought his granddad. He said, I'm good at shiny things. This week, I learned how to be good at the unsexy part of love, making sure your grandma doesn't click a bad link. The room chuckled. Then he added, I almost took a deal. I didn't. He looked at me. I wanted to tell that part out loud. Sloane didn't show the episodes. She talked about them. She said, filters are like lies so small you convince yourself they're kindness. She said she lost money and found people. She said, I'm not on a brand trip this month. I'm on a human one. Marcus groaned. The room laughed. Sloane rolled her eyes. She's learning to be charming without the part that scrapes off her truth. Theo, God bless the boy, presented his birdhouses like they were Nobel Prizes. He explained the 1-inch tape trick and flashed his splinter in a bag like a badge. He confessed the extra hour of screen time in front of half the town and did not combust. Ranger Denise gave him a thumbs up. A toddler in row 3 yelled, "Bird!" at the prop, and the whole room smiled. Noah leaned into the mic and said, I told a lie, and then I told the truth, and I like the second one better, mostly. Everyone laughed. He read one of his compliments to the room like a benediction. Your listening face is beautiful. We all sat up straighter without meaning to. I know this part is hard to hear, but it's important. The truth was about to come out, and it was going to be glorious. During the Q&A, a man from the 3rd row stood up, the kind of man who owns a nice watch and has never met his own soft voice. So, the money, he said blunt, you make them dance for it? He didn't say it cruelly. He said it like he needed to understand the engine. No, I said, I asked them to work for it. Work that matched what they needed to grow. If they did it, they'd get money and something better. If they didn't, the money goes to the community foundation in Hank's name. Either way, the work blesses the town. He nodded slowly. And if they mess up, then we tell the truth about the mess and the learning, and the foundation gets a boost. He sat down. He looked relieved.
I've learned people can love a story that doesn't end with a bow as long as they trust the teller. And then the bow has to be tied anyway. From the back of the room, Yolanda, cornbread Yolanda, with the sun and the calm smile, raised her hand. "Unit A," she said to Evan. "We on the list?" Evan nodded. "You're first in line after reinspect." She looked at me. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," I said, throat tight. "Thank chili and tarps and men who know where to put nails." We took pictures, real ones, on phones, in bad fluorescent light, with bare faces and powdered sugar on lips. The town didn't forgive me all at once. They're not saints. But they decided to sit with me and see. That's all a woman can ask of her people. Sit with me and see. The next morning, the reinspect happened. Evan passed. We cheered quietly, because pride in a duplex is a delicate thing and should be handled like a souffle. He called Yolanda. She cried. He cried. Earl pretended not to dab his eye with his sleeve. "Keys tomorrow," Evan said, like the line in a movie you'd pay to see. Lydia wrapped "Pay What You Can" with a small celebration in the parking lot. The landlord's wife brought lemonade. Dawn brought a blessing. Sloane filmed only the hands and the laughter again. Lydia put the mirror back in the stockroom and decided to keep it there for a while. Not forever, she told me later, but long enough to break the habit. Marcus held a scam graduation. Saul insisted we call it scammencement. We did not. Where he handed out laminated, "I don't click that" cards with the library number printed big as a billboard. Mrs. Gianetti made biscotti again. It chipped slightly fewer molars. He added a new module, "How to talk to your grandkids about being your tech support without making them cry." It was a hit. Sloane posted "Unfiltered Kindness," the reunion, with no music bed, just a little hum of summer and the sound of people exhaling. Her numbers didn't spike. Her DMs filled with messages from strangers telling the truth about their cities, their shelters, their laundromats. She started a spreadsheet. Yes, we're that family, with resources by zip code. She put it in her bio, not behind a brand paywall. Her agent texted a question mark. She texted back a heart and a birdhouse emoji.
Theo organized a bird brunch with Ranger Denise, a silly name for a quiet hour where kids sat on the bench and ate muffins while watching feathered tenants go about their business. Two sparrows argued, a blue bird preened. Someone spotted a cardinal and shrieked like Elvis had returned. Theo didn't touch his phone once. He wiped crumbs off the bench like a proprietor who cares about his place. Noah counted his 21st day and then made a declaration at dinner. "I'm going to keep going." Lydia raised her glass of iced tea. "To the truth," she said. "To the truth," we echoed, like a toast we'll use long after the paperwork in Deshawn's office grows dusty. It would be perfect to end here, wouldn't it? With passes and graduations and muffins and a freshly installed egress window shining like absolution. But remember the promise I made you at the start. This isn't a fairy tale about neat finishes. It's a story about justice wrapped in kindness, and kindness doesn't always behave on a schedule. 2 days before Deshawn was set to certify the tasks complete enough, his phrase, delicate as an egg, each of my 6 decided, entirely on their own and entirely in ways that made me alternately furious and proud, to break a rule for a right reason. Evan set up Unit A and Unit B with furniture he bought from a church thrift. It was clean, sturdy, fine. Then he saw the mattress in Unit A and thought of Yolanda's back, the tired way she moved her shoulders. He took his Amex, marched into a store, and bought a brand new mattress that cost more than a week's groceries. He carried it in himself. He knew the rule: budget cap, no flashy shortcuts, no buying your way out of caring. He broke it, shrugged, and said later, "I will sleep at night." Lydia got a call from a woman at the shelter the morning of a job interview. Her blouse had a stain. Lydia opened the shop early, pulled a blouse off the new arrivals rack, and handed it over. She rang it at 0. The rules said donate all proceeds. This was not a proceed. This was a gift. In the ledger, it looks like theft. In the heart, it looks like church. Lydia texted me afterward. "I can pay back the trust if you want.
I couldn't let her walk into that room with a stain. Marcus wrote a letter to the city council asking them to fund the library's hardware upgrades. He included stats, stories, and the line, "If you want our seniors to avoid scams, they need to be able to see the screen, not squint through regret." A local tech guy offered to sponsor the purchase in exchange for naming rights on the reading room, the Crypto Lounge. Marcus laughed, then almost said yes because money is quick. He said no. He signed his name to the letter, which isn't against the rules, but he also used the library's printer after hours to run copies for council members. That is a gray area. Mabel wagged a finger. He promised to reimburse the ink. He showed up to the meeting in a thrifted blazer and spoke like a citizen instead of a brand. Sloane filmed an episode she didn't post. A woman cried on camera about a kindness done to her years ago that she still carries like a talisman. Sloane asked permission. The woman said yes. Sloane watched it back at home and thought, "This belongs to her, not to me." She deleted the file. The rule says 14 episodes. She had 12. She was working on 13. This would have been 14. She chose not to meet a number to keep a person whole. Theo found house 18 cracked. A kid had hung on it, monkey bar style, and the screw gave up the ghost. He could have marked it down, "We'll fix," and kept going. He sat down in the grass, pulled out his screwdriver, and repaired it while the kid waited, contrite. He missed the time he'd set aside for homework. He turned an assignment in late and told his teacher why. He took the 0. "I'll drop the lowest grade," the teacher said. "Not this one," Theo answered. "I need to feel it." Noah's big rule break was spectacular and exactly correct. He heard 2 boys picking on a girl in the hallway, new, shy, with a backpack that swallowed her whole. Noah stepped in. "Stop," he said, using his mother's eyebrows in my church voice. They teased him. He said, "I'm serious." A teacher was nowhere in sight. He told a very loud lie. "My gran is the principal's best friend." I am not. I bring cookies, that's all. The boys backed off. The girl walked away fast. Noah told the principal later. He told the truth. He took $5 out of his jar. He put it back in when the principal said, "Son, that was a good lie in the service of a better truth." Which is when I realized I couldn't hand out my letters, sealed and solemn, with a straight face. The letters were written to a version of victory that looked like clean lines and boxes checked. What I had, what they had, what we had earned together was messier and better. They hadn't completed their tasks by my perfectly typed conditions. Every one of them had missed a clause, bent a rule, or stared at the clock and chose a human over a checklist. According to the document, no one passed.
According to my heart, we'd already won. He was about to get exactly what he deserved, and I had a front row seat. Don't go anywhere. Here's the truth I woke up to at 3:11 a.m., staring at the ceiling fan, making its slow pilgrim circles. By the letter of my pretty lawyerly conditions, none of my people had passed. Not a one. Each of them had broken a clause or bent a rule or chosen a human over a checklist. By the heart of what I wanted, growth you can taste, change you can hear in a person's laugh, they were acing the thing. So what do you grade? The ink or the intention? I made coffee strong enough to make a spoon stand upright and called a meeting before anyone had time to rehearse. Deshawn arrived with that calm I've come to count on. Mabel with cookies, Betty with her clicking pen, Sal with the grin she uses when she knows the next hour is going to be interesting. "I wrote these letters," I said, patting the stack like it was a sleeping cat. "Sealed them even. They are love, wrapped in rules. But the reality is messy and better. No one completed the task as written. Everyone completed the lesson. If I hand these out under the pretense of pass-fail, I'll be lying, and I am done with polite lies." So we tell them,
Deshawn said, like a man who believes the simplest path is the one we're all scared to take. And we give the money to the community foundation, as promised, Betty said, because justice keeps promises, or it becomes a bribe. And we give the family something else, Mabel added, eyes bright, a job to do, a way to keep the muscle they just built. Exactly, I said, stewardship instead of spoils. We set it for Sunday afternoon, back in that oak-paneled room that had seen more Whittaker feelings than my kitchen ever did. I wore my blue cardigan, the costume, fine. It felt like putting on armor and history at once, and brought lemon squares dusted like forgiveness. They came with the look of people who have slept hard and dreamed loud. Evan in the same paint-scarred jeans, Lydia with bare cheeks and brave eyes, Marcus smelling like printer toner, Sloane with her freckles out and an empty tote, no tripods, Theo with sawdust in his hair like confetti, Noah holding his journal like a compass. Okay, I said, once we were all seated and the water bottles had their little caps popped and placed like halos. Today's the certification, but first, the truth, no sugar. I looked at each of them as I said it. No one completed their task by the rulebook. Every one of you completed something larger by the rulebook in my heart. And because I promised the same consequences for everyone, whether you learned the lesson or ignored it, the inheritance will go to the Hank and Ellie Whittaker Community Fund. All of it. The room did that thing rooms do when air gets knocked sideways. Silent, then a low rustle, like wind in palmettos. Evan's jaw tightened, then unclenched. Lydia's chin trembled, then steadied. Marcus put his hands palms down on the table like he was feeling for an earthquake. Sloane's eyes filled, then cleared. Theo swallowed. Noah said quietly, "Okay." I made a promise and I'm keeping it. If I move the goalposts for you, even for good reasons, this whole thing becomes a very expensive game. I won't do that to any of us. I took a breath. But I also didn't do all this just to teach you a trick about wills. I did it because I want us back, together, upright, useful. So I am also making appointments. I slid 6 envelopes across the table, thinner than the first set, hand-addressed, tied with twine. Nobody tore, everybody waited. Evan, I said, you're the steward of Maple Street. Not the owner, steady now, but the steward. The fund will hold the deeds. You'll be paid a modest stipend to keep the duplex up to code, host chili nights once a month, and run a waiting list with integrity. Your metric is not profit, it's retention and neighbor thank yous. He blinked. You're hiring me to care? Yes, because you learned to do it with your hands, and I want your head to follow. Funny, he said, a smile sneaking into the corner of his mouth. I always thought care came after profit. Turns out it's the other way round. Lydia, I continued, sliding hers over, Director of Dignity at LaBelle. The fund will underwrite a monthly pay-what-you-can day and a permanent dignity closet for the shelter. No mirrors on those days unless someone asks. Your job is to write those index card references of the heart, fit blouses, and train volunteers in kindness that doesn't trip over itself. Modest stipend, plenty of hugs. She put a hand to her chest. Director of Dignity, she repeated, and then laughed with something like relief. Lord, I've had worse titles. Marcus, I said, lead for the Whittaker Library Tech Commons. The fund will help the library upgrade its hardware, no crypto lounge. He snorted, and you'll run a weekly class called Don't Get Got. You'll be paid what the library can pay, plus cookies from Mrs. Gianetti when the biscotti softens. Your measure is wolves kept out. He saluted with 2 fingers, eyes bright. Yes, ma'am. Sloane, I said, editor of Unfiltered Kindness. The fund will make a tiny grant pool for the stories you cover. Bus passes, a month of pet food, a ramp for Freddie's shop. No sponsors, no affiliate links. You get a stipend to produce 12 episodes a year. Half barefaced, all honest. If a story belongs to someone else, let it stay theirs. You are not a content mill. You're a neighbor with a camera. She pressed her lips together, then nodded. Deal, she whispered. Theo, I said. Ranger Denise has agreed to you becoming junior habitat coordinator. The fund will supply lumber and tiny nails. You'll recruit kids, build houses, and keep the bench clean. You get a small stipend that must be spent on experiences outside screens 2 Saturdays a month. You will fight me about the amount of the stipend. I will win. He grinned wide enough to show the tooth he chipped on a skateboard at 12. Okay, he said. Can we build bee hotels too? Yes, I said, because of course yes. Noah, I finished, director of the Truth Show, quarterly talent nights at the community center, funded for pizza and prizes that are not all about who sings loudest. Your job is to write compliments that are specific and brave. You're the youngest paid person in the fund's history. Try not to let it go to your head. He beamed. I won't. Maybe a little. I laid my hands flat on the table so they'd stop shaking. There is one more envelope. It's for me. They all stared. It says, I read, that I have to stop smoothing the sheet every time someone else wrinkles it. It says I have to accept apologies without adding extra steps and own my stunts without hiding behind powdered sugar. It says I have to let my family love me back exactly as I am, which includes the part of me that faked my own funeral to get everyone's attention. I laughed, wincing. It's a lot. Lydia reached across and set her fingers on my wrist. I accept, she said, on behalf of all of us. And just when he thought he had me backed into a corner, he forgot who he was dealing with. Stick with me because you'll want to see how this plays out. We didn't end the meeting with clapping. We ended it with work. Evan left to meet the inspector for Unit B. Lydia went to the shelter with a trunk full of properly sized bras and a label maker. Marcus headed to the library to teach a pop-up module on browser extensions because he'd heard a rumor about a new scam. Sloane stopped by the firehouse to film Earl teaching a teenager how to coil a hose. Theo bicycled to the park with a backpack of screws that jangled like a tambourine. Noah moved the Honesty Marathon jar from the kitchen counter to the community center office with a little sign, "Take what you need. Tell the truth anyway." 2 days later, we held the official will hearing. Not the private, family-only thing, the one the whole town had been whispering about over green beans at dinner. We booked the community center gym because the oak-paneled room had become too small for our mess. The gym smelled like echoes and old trophies. Deshawn set the microphone at my height, a volunteer teenager tested it with "check 1, 2," and then sang one perfect line from a church song before blushing and skittering away. We placed 6 chairs on the stage and one for me, which felt like a luxury after months of hiding behind glass. A banner hung to one side, hand-painted by Betty's Sunday school class, reading Hank and Ellie Whitaker Community Fund. Because love does. The does had a drip on the O like it couldn't help itself. The town poured in. Mrs. Gianetti front and center, Earl lurking like a benevolent gargoyle, Ranger Denise in her uniform, Dawn with 2 shelter clients who chose seats in the back, the landlord's wife squeezing Lydia's shoulder as she passed, Yolanda with her boy, the library staff lined up like a chorus line of cardigans. People brought their opinions and their curiosity, and I hoped their spare grace. Deshawn did the legal reading. He is a beautiful bureaucrat when he wants to be. He explained the trust, the conditions, the clause that sent funds to the foundation if tasks went uncompleted. He read out the projects the fund would seed: Maple Street Homes, LaBelle Dignity Closet, Whitaker Library, Tech Commons, Vine Laundromat Kindness Grants, Denise's Park Habitat Program, Truth Show Microgrants. Each line got a different sound: murmurs, ohs, a couple of claps in the wrong places, laughter when the crypto lounge was rejected by name. And, he said, the personal bequests are sentimental only. Letters, recipes, photographs, and one object each.
That part wasn't in the rumor mill. Heads tilted. People held their breath the way you do when someone is about to open the box that might have a bird in it. I stood. My money goes to the town, I said. My heart goes to my family. Evan gets Hank's level and his navy jacket.
Lydia gets my recipe cards and the little silver thimble from my first sewing kit. Marcus gets the library stamp that says property of because he knows the difference between owning and borrowing now. Sloane gets my mother's compact, no powder inside, you decide whether you want a mirror. Theo gets Hank's pocket knife, respect it or hand it back. Noah gets my blue cardigan, which he can grow into or leave on the back of a chair for a cold friend. People made the sounds people make when old objects carry a century across a room. Tiny gasps, private O's. The 6 of them look shocked and then strangely settled, like the letters and the pocket knife and the stamp weighed the exact right amount. "And my house?" someone called from the back. I'd wondered who would ask. It was Sal, of course it was, too gleeful to keep quiet. "Mrs. Whitaker, don't keep the people in suspense." I laughed. "My house stays mine until God calls me upstairs," I said. "When I go, it becomes the Whitaker kitchen. Community suppers, chilly nights when it rains. A place to teach a child to flip a pancake without burning the first one. The garage is already the birdhouse barn. The garden will be a place where people can pick basil without a lecture. In other words, a home, for as many as we can fit." It should have ended there, with applause and a smooth walk off stage, the way award shows do it. But life is not televised, thank heavens. A hand went up, careful, polite, a woman I didn't know, late 50s, hair pulled back, a name tag from the laundromat. "Mrs. Whitaker," she said, voice trembling with something that wasn't anger, not quite. "What if some of us didn't need the lesson? What if some of us just needed you?" It knocked the breath out of me. I stood there in my cardigan and my pearls and felt every ache rise. "You're right. Some of you didn't need a spectacle to show up. You've been here all along. I am sorry for making you worry. I am grateful you stayed anyway. Consider this fund back pay. Consider the Lemon Squares reparations." There was a beat. Then, bless that room, somebody laughed, and everything softened. I opened the floor. People asked practical questions: how to apply for the laundromat grants, whether the Dignity Closet could use sewing lessons. Yes. If the library could do a Bring Your Grandchild to Tech Day. Marcus lit up like a marquee. Yes. If the park bench could get another coat of sealant. Theo solemnly promised it would by Tuesday. If the truth show could feature adults sometimes. Noah looked at me, I nodded, and he puffed up with responsibility. And just when he thought he had me backed into a corner, he forgot who he was dealing with. Stick with me, because you'll want to see how this plays out. After the hearing, we didn't go home. We went to Maple Street. You could feel the pull, like a magnet, not because of fresh paint, though there was that, but because of what was waiting. Keys on a ring, a woman and her son with 2 duffel bags, a neighborhood figuring out the choreography of welcome. Evan stood on the porch with Earl at his shoulder and Deshawn dignified behind them. Yolanda rocked up holding her boy's hand, and the whole block learned what relief looks like when you hang it above a doorframe. Evan handed her the keys like a sacrament. He said, "First month is paperwork, so there will be people in and out. We've got chili if you're hungry." She nodded, crying without snot, dignified, grateful, tired. Her son stared at the string lights and said, "We get those forever?" "As long as you want to turn them on," Evan answered. I watched my son stand taller than his spreadsheets. Lydia left the hearing and opened the bell with a hand-lettered sign, "Dignity Closet, ask us." She put 3 dresses on headless mannequins and wrote compliments pinned to each like corsages. A woman came in with a face like an apology and left with a blouse, a bra that fit, and a card from Lydia that said, "You carry the kind of grace that doesn't announce itself." Sloane filmed only the hands, always the hands, and turned off the camera when the tears started. Some stories are not ours to keep in pixels. Marcus walked to the library and held the door open for 15 elders who had decided to stop fearing their phones. He installed the first of the new machines the fund had ordered, humming under his breath, "This is not a crypto lounge," like a spell to keep wolves at bay. He taught them how to bookmark the county scam alert page and how to send a text to a grandson that isn't a whole novel. He put a gold star in his own notebook and didn't look around to see who saw him do it.
Theo recruited 2 kids from the hearing by waving a hammer like the Pied Piper. "We're capping screws," he announced, as if that were the only reasonable way to spend a Sunday. Ranger Denise winked at me. "Junior Habitat Coordinator," she said, loud enough for Theo to hear. He stood up straighter, then hunched again because he's 16 and caught between sizes. Noah took his journal and a roll of painter's tape and went to the community center to put up flyers for the next Truth Show. He wrote compliments on 3 and taped them to the drinking fountain. "You are kind to your own thirsty. You make cold rooms warmer. You remember to look up." A little boy read one aloud and grinned like he'd been named. That night, we gathered at my butter yellow house, the first time all 6 of them had sat under my roof together since the hospital scare. I'd set the table with mismatched plates because matching is overrated, and used the good napkins because every meal with my children is a holiday now. We ate chili, of course we did, and cornbread and a salad I grew myself because 67-year-old women are allowed to be smug about tomatoes. We went around like we used to at Thanksgiving, except this time I asked a different kind of question. What did you learn that you can't unlearn? Evan said that a level tells you the truth whether you like it or not, and that being bad at something in public won't kill me. Lydia said that mirrors are useful tools and terrible gods. Marcus said that community is slower than money and that the second thing is worth going slow for. Sloan said that being seen for real doesn't crack me, it keeps me from cracking. Theo said that screens are wonderful, but sunsets and screws stick in my hands. Noah said that compliments are little vaccinations against lies. Then they turned to me, the way children do when they realize their mother is a person and not a machine. I swallowed. That love is not a ledger. That I taught you to take the easier kindness because I was afraid of losing you if I asked for more. That I can ask now. We did the dishes 3 generationally different ways. Lydia rinsed like a pro, Marcus stacked like Tetris, Sloan filmed a 5-second clip for her story and then put the phone away without me asking, and we laughed so big the windows fogged. Later, when everyone had gone and the house sighed the way houses do after company, I sat with a stack of sealed letters, the ones I'd written when I still thought we were doing pass-fail. I opened them one by one and read them alone, what I'd wanted to say, wrapped in conditions. Then I wrote new letters, shorter, each just a few lines. Evan, pride looks better on you, Dusty. Keep the lights on. Lydia, your eye for beauty is a muscle for mercy now. Use it until it aches. Marcus, teach like you're talking to your grandmother and your own 15-year-old self at the same time. Sloan, when in doubt, choose the story that leaves a person whole. Theo, splinters are reminders that you have a body. Sunsets are proof there's still time. Noah, keep the jar. Spend it on pizza for brave kids. I tucked each into the little object I'd set aside. The level, the thimble, the stamp, the compact, the pocket knife, the cardigan. No speeches. Just things to hold when the old habits crept back like cats through a screen door. A month slid by like warm honey. The duplex settled into itself. New tenants laughing, chilly steam fogging windows on Fridays. LaBelle's dignity closet found a rhythm. Lydia kept the mirror off the floor more days than not. The library's tech commons became a hub. Marcus started an intergenerational game of chess between a teenager and an 84-year-old that will outlast us all. Sloan posted slowly, carefully, and took as much off-camera as she put on. Theo's birdhouses saw a new wave of tenants. He started a spreadsheet he shared with Ranger Denise that reads like a tiny census. Noah's Truth Show filled the community center with people whose gifts wouldn't have made it past the first round on TV, and were all the better for it. The fund made its first round of grants. The laundromat handed out rolls of quarters to parents and taped a sign over the change machine. Brought to you by neighbors who believe in clean clothes. The park bought a second bench. The library bought a surge protector that would make an engineer weep. The shelter got a rack of new blouses and a bulletin board full of Lydia's index cards. We started mailing thank you notes to donors who gave to the fund because they liked the way the town felt with its sleeves rolled up. People sent $10, $20, $100. An old lady sent 3 crocheted dish rags and a letter that said, "I am not on the computer, I am on your side." I pinned it by the phone.
And then, one evening, in that soft Florida dusk that makes everything gold, I did the last thing I'd been putting off. I went to the cemetery. Hank's stone sits under an oak that drops acorns like small, hard blessings. I brought him a lemon square, which would make the groundskeeper cluck if he knew, but Hank and I were always conspirators. "I did it, sailor," I said, patting the cool marble. I made a mess and a miracle. I made them all mad, and then I made them laugh. I gave the money to the town and the jobs to the kids. I kept the cardigan. You'd hate the spectacle and love the result. A breeze came up and ruffled the oak leaves like applause. When I got home, there was a note on my door. No envelope, just a scrap from a spiral notebook, torn rough, taped crooked. Evan's blocky handwriting. "Mom, re-inspected Unit B. Passed. Chilly this Friday. Come as you are." I went. Of course I went. I brought cornbread and sat on a folding chair watching kids run upstairs like caribou, and the string lights blink on like stars we hung ourselves. Lydia came late, wiping mascara-less eyes, smelling like new cotton and the faintest hint of courage. Marcus arrived with a tray of cookies that were finally soft. Sloane slipped in and didn't film anything for a full half hour, just stood with her head on my shoulder. Theo showed me a photo of Mr. Blue's babies, which he had printed, not posted. Noah introduced the tenants to the crowd like a little mayor, with compliments that made grown men clear their throats. A neighbor looked around at the whole scene, the chili, the cornbread, the lights, the laughing, the woman in the blue cardigan who had the gall to pretend to die and then ask everyone to leave, and said, wonder threaded with amusement, "This is over an inheritance?" "No," I said, smiling. "It's over a family." By the end of that summer, the town had mostly stopped talking about whether my stunt was cruel or clever and started talking about schedules. When was the next Pay What You Can day? Did Marcus need volunteers on Tuesdays? Could Theo teach a troupe to build bee hotels? Was the truth show taking spoken word? And if so, could Auntie come read a poem? That's the best kind of reputation. Not what you did, but what you'll do next. One last thing. Because I promised you the whole story. People ask me if I regret faking my death. I tell them I regret the worry, yes. I regret the casseroles that got cold without a wake to attend. I regret the 3 days Noah spent sleeping with a flashlight under his pillow like grief comes in the night. But I do not regret the way that one wild act shook us all awake. I do not regret the money going where money can make beauty in bulk. I do not regret the way my children's faces look now when they laugh. Less polished, more alive. None of them completed their assignments. Every one of them learned what they needed, which is to say, we all passed. And at the end of it, when I laid all my cards on the table, my mistakes, my hopes, my blue cardigan, they loved me back. Not politely, not because there was a check attached. They were glad I was alive. We reconciled like people who finally understood that love is work and work is love, and the ledger is for the accountants. We're a family again, with chores. Now, I'm curious, what would you have done in my place? Would you have written the same tasks, made the same call with the money, pulled the same stunt, or done it differently? Tell me in the comments how you would have handled a family that forgot the difference between inheritance and love.
My grandmother told me this story. Thanks for watching this video. Bye bye!